The story begins when our protagonist, Rui, wakes up in a role-playing game, reincarnated as the fat, hated crown prince, infamously known as the hideous orc. No matter the choices he makes in the game, the hideous orc always ends up with a bad ending, and worse, he is infamous for terrible crimes against women, leaving Rui almost no chance of survival. As the crown prince, Rui is assigned a maid named Elsa, one of the main heroines from a fallen noble house. After confirming the timeline, he realizes he has been reincarnated 5 years before the main story begins. In the original timeline, the prince was supposed to torment Elsa, but Rui decides to change the story and avoid his doomed fate. When Elsa offers herself to him, he politely refuses, which shocks her, so she panics, asking him to reconsider. However, Rui was a loser in his past life who had never even talked to a cute girl, and burdened by the prince's traumatic memories, Rui feels deeply uncomfortable around her. Apparently, the original crown prince had withdrawn after his fiancée, Princess Sophia of a neighboring kingdom, publicly humiliated him, broke off their engagement, and spread rumors that he was a violent lecher. Isolated and ashamed, the emperor gave him Elsa as a way to comfort him, which marked the beginning of his downfall. Now that he is in control, Rui wants to rewrite that future because he was also an outcast in his previous life. To escape his doomed fate, Rui decides to focus on losing weight and improving himself, hoping that changing his image will help him avoid the tragic ending. Later, Rui's tyrannical father, Emperor Otto of Baldoberg, visits to check on him and his plaything, Elsa. Before leaving, he vows to take revenge on every nation that caused Rui pain, especially the Belgic kingdom, Sophia's homeland. Otto's overindulgence overwhelms Rui, giving him a splitting headache that causes him to pass out. He wakes to find Elsa tending to him, making him wonder why she is so kind to him. She explains that it is because he is her master, and Rui thanks her politely. His courtesy surprises Elsa, who notes he seems different from the rumors she heard. After sending her away, Rui tries to exercise to change his fate, but it ends up in a dramatic collapse, making it clear that this wannabe gym bro might need more than a miracle to lose a pound of fat. The following day, Rui is served the usual lavish meal, but he tells Elsa to only serve vegetables from now on. Elsa is stunned when she learns that he plans to lose weight, convincing her that he must be losing his mind. He then tells Elsa to see him after breakfast, but she misunderstands his intentions. Rui quickly explains that he simply wants her to help him train, which makes her wonder why he wants her to train him instead of the palace knights. However, Rui knows the game like the back of his hand, and according to his knowledge, Elsa is from a family of assassins, and among the heroines, she is one of the strongest. Sensing her hesitation, Rui bows, begging her to help him. He tells her his predicament and everything Sophia did to him, explaining that he wants to prove them wrong. After listening to his pathetic tale, Elsa agrees, and Rui tells her not to hold back, claiming he can withstand anything. Before starting the training session, she tells him to call her the instructor and only respond positively when ordered to do anything. Elsa then examines his body and concludes that exercise and dieting will never be enough due to Rui's many years of pigging out. She settles for a special body modification training and leads Rui up a high tower. Without any warning, she pushes him off the tower, but the fat in his body serves as a cushion, protecting him from any injuries. After the first test, she instructs him to do it several times, and Rui has no choice but to obey. After training, Elsa gives him a massage and even offers extra fan service, but Rui rejects the idea. He lets her know that normal people only give fan service to someone they love. Rui then thanks Elsa for the massage, and the two decide to work hard together the next day. A few months later, Rui has considerably slimmed down, but his weight hasn't decreased at all. This is because Elsa's technique helps him slim down by compressing the fat into a dense form. To compress it further, she moves the training to the 3rd floor of the tower. Rui climbs the wall slowly while Elsa literally walks on walls, making him jealous, but she lets him know that he has no aptitude for such a talent. For the next stage of training, Elsa pushes Rui into the sea to face off with a sea monster, famous for humiliating its opponents. After several failed attempts to outmaneuver it, Rui steps out of the pool in nothing but air, leaving Elsa flustered when she sees his sausage. After slimming down a few more times, Rui progressed to training with a double sword, but Elsa advised him to switch to a single sword and shield. However, he refuses, because he was used to using the double swords whenever he played the game in his previous life. Rui decisively tells Elsa that he plans to become the strongest with this style of fighting, and she agrees to help him train, warning that the training will be more intense than anything he has experienced so far. For the next couple of months, Elsa puts Rui through fire and even moves the tower, falling to the 5th floor. After a whole year of brutal training, Rui finally achieved his fluff reduction mission, earning him a standing ovation from Elsa. She plans to retire as his instructor, but Rue informs her that she still needs to help him with his dual sword technique. Rue politely asks Elsa to keep supporting him, and though he had initially thought of avoiding her, she has unknowingly become an important part of his life. He also tells her to address him casually, and she agrees, marking the start of their friendship. A few days later, the Emperor throws a send-off ball for Rue, who is about to attend the Imperial Academy. At the ball, Rue draws attention from the guests due to his drastic transformation. Overwhelmed by his inferiority complex, he hides in a corner like a wuss until Elsa finds him. Emperor Otto soon arrives and praises Rue's progress, urging him to make a name for himself at the academy, but instead of encouragement, his words only make Rue uncomfortable. Before leaving, Otto sternly orders Elsa to serve Rue day and night without fail. After Otto leaves, Rue apologizes to Elsa on his father's behalf, but she reassures him that she enjoys serving him. She even promises to support him as both his maid and classmate. Next, Rue prepares for the academy entrance ceremony, reflecting on how far he's come from being the hideous, ugly orc. He hopes to avoid Sophia, especially since the academy hosts royals from different kingdoms. Rue figures she wouldn't risk coming after damaging diplomatic ties between their two kingdoms. Rue is snapped back to reality when Elsa appears in a dress code violation, almost giving him a nosebleed. On their way to the academy, Elsa asks Rue about his speech as the new student representative. Rue claims that he is ready, but deep down, he dreads standing in front of a crowd. As if sensing his anxiety, Elsa cheers him on to help him calm his nerves. When they arrive at the Imperial Academy, Rue offers his hand to help Elsa down from the carriage, but she refuses, because it is not something a noble should do for a maid. However, Rue, already infamous for being terrible, doesn't care about adding a few more labels. As they slowly head inside, Rue feels even more nervous walking side by side with someone as beautiful as Elsa. Ignoring the crowd staring at him like he's a lamb headed for slaughter, Rue grabs Elsa's hand and urges her to follow him inside quickly. While rushing inside with Elsa, Rue bumps into his nemesis, Sophia, leaving him with a sense of dread. Sophia, who doesn't know that the handsome guy in front of her is actually Rue, starts acting coquettishly in front of him. As thoughts of what she did to the original owner flood in, Rue quickly rushes off with Elsa to a quiet corner. Elsa tries to ask about his relationship with Sophia, but Rue is too upset to respond as the original owner's feelings resonate deeply with him. Suddenly, Elsa grabs Rue and squeezes him between her bosom, consoling him. As if on cue, Rue instantly releases the Niagara Falls effect, causing Elsa to share in his sadness. Carried away by the moment, Elsa uses her plot cushions to tightly squeeze his face, almost cutting his free oxygen supply. Moments after Otto's welcome speech, the student council president, Eleonora, takes the stage. Rue immediately recognizes her as one of the heroines and the daughter of the most powerful family in the empire. According to the game, Rue has to turn her into his slave, or it might lead to a coup, resulting in another doomed ending. After Eleonora's speech, the crowd erupts in whispers as Rue is invited to give his speech. He immediately begins his speech by introducing himself as the hideous orc, pointing out that people only know him from all the rumors peddled around. As he ends his speech, Rue pleads with the crowd to give him a chance to show them who he truly is. After his nerve-wracking speech, the crowd remained absolutely silent, but Rue is satisfied and decides to take his time to change their mind and avoid his doomed fate. After the entrance ceremony, Elsa commends Rue for his speech, and he thanks her even though he feels like crap for not making any waves. They then decide to head to the classroom, but on their way, a rude dude bumps into Rue, acting like his father is the road contractor. A beautiful girl immediately apologizes for the rude guy, and Rue recognizes her as Natalia, the saintess of the Minerva Church of the Lathia Kingdom and one of the main heroines. According to the game, Natalia is the most cunning character who destroys Sophia's kingdom and frames Rue for it, making his kingdom public enemy number one. Natalia introduces herself and her knights, Batista and Marco, to Rue. After the introduction, she jumps on him, launching a flirtatious jiggle trap to reel him in. Her plans work as Rue is charmed by her beauty, forgetting that oxygen is not optional, but Elsa steps in to save him, and Natalia's knights also pull her away before her honey trap takes effect. Once they leave, Elsa scolds Rue for selling his soul, but he denies it because he actually plans to avoid Natalia without being told to. This is because, according to his game knowledge, Natalia is a female demon who parades herself as a saint. Believing that a loser like him has no chance of bagging the beauty, Rue assures Elsa that he will never fall for the saintess. A few moments later, the homeroom teacher addresses the class while Rue thinks about his pathetic life. He is just glad that Sophia is not in his class, and apart from Elsa, there are only two other heroines in his class. He then turns around to see Natalia waving at him, and Elsa offers to eliminate her. Rue notices that the other heroine in his class is Ophelia, the fourth princess of the Brain United Kingdom. According to the game, Ophelia is known as the frenzied knight and the strongest of all the heroines. Since this is real life for him, Rui decides to avoid her at all costs. After class, Rui apologizes to Elsa for making her serve him while juggling her duties as a student. He vows to restore her family if he manages to avoid his doomed fate, leaving Elsa flustered. Moments later, they received an invitation from Eleonora inviting them to a welcome ball for new students. Rui agrees to go even though he knows that, according to the game, Eleonora is a character plotting to overthrow his empire. He tells Elsa that he doesn't know how to dance, so she offers to dance with him alone at the ball. At the welcome ball, Rui cowers like a wuss as the guests stare and whisper behind him. Walking beside the most beautiful and graceful girl in the room makes him feel like an out-of-place frog prince. Rui wishes he had just stayed back home, but Elsa cheers him on, explaining that the party would not even begin without him. Though moved by her words, Rui still struggles to fit in because of his severe loser complex. Moments later, Eleonora welcomes everyone and opens the dance floor, but no one dares take the stage before the crown prince. This is because a professor of the academy is also in attendance, making it impossible for the guests to disrespect Rui. Elsa then invites Rui to the stage, and he tries his best to focus on his legs simply to avoid stepping on her. Elsa manages to convince him to look at her, but her beautiful appearance only makes him more nervous, so he decides to stop dancing. Rui feels like he doesn't deserve to dance with her, and just as he is about to grab a drink, Sophia appears out of nowhere, asking him to dance with her. Rui is so stunned that he begins to tremble, recalling all the awful things she said to the original owner. He wants to tell her off, but the trauma makes him freeze in place, unable to do anything. Fortunately, Elsa intervenes, but her rudeness only infuriates Sophia, and she starts belittling Elsa. Fed up with her disgusting behavior, Rui pours a glass of wine on Sophia and harshly reprimands her for treating his maid like trash. Before the situation escalates, Eleonora steps in, but instead of mediating, she blames Rui for fighting another noble because of a lowly servant. Ignoring Eleonora's words, Rui firmly tells them that he can't remain silent while they insult the most important person to him. He then expresses his disgust for Eleonora's support of Sophia's attitude and then storms out of the party with Elsa. On their way home, Elsa and Rui end up apologizing to each other, making them burst into laughter. Elsa thanks him for standing up for her, and Rui does the same, and they both decide to support each other. Back home, Rui thinks about the events of the party and concludes that his plan to get along with the heroines has been ruined. Despite his tarnished image, Rui does not regret his actions at the party, and with Sophia as one of the main characters, he is certain there is no hope for him to win the others over. Rui wonders how to proceed, especially since the whole story hinges on his relationship with the heroines. After coming up empty, he decides to simply find a way to survive instead of being a loser simp. That night, Rui is awakened by Elsa wearing nothing but confidence outside his door. Before he can even invite her in, she pounces on him like a thirsty beach, offering to give him some spicy fan service treat. However, Rui rejects her, making Elsa feel like worthless trash. Rui wraps a robe around her and explains that what she is offering should be saved for someone she truly loves. He then tells her to return to her room, but Elsa begs him to allow her to stay with him, and he agrees. Before Rui can take the sofa, Elsa pounces on him, forcing him to share the bed with her. As he lies beside her, Rui trembles like a fish out of water while Elsa sleeps without a care in the world. The following day, Rui is unable to get out of bed because of anxiety, and Elsa's sweet comment as soon as she wakes makes his anxiety spike. She even throws herself into his arms, and Rui literally flees from his room to avoid her. Even though he was unable to sleep the night before, he still feels energized and plans to train harder because the thought of returning to his former self scares him. On his way to train, Rui runs into Ophelia and apologizes for disturbing her. Ophelia is surprised that he knows her name, and Rui tries his best to explain it to her without sounding like a creepy stalker. After clearing the air, she asks why he is in the courtyard, and he explains that he is there to train. Instead of leaving him alone, Ophelia decides to be a spectator, making Rui flustered and completely destroying his plans to avoid her. Seeing she has no plans to leave, Rui decides to continue his training, but his bizarre method of throwing himself from a high wall leaves her stunned. Ophelia quietly watches for almost an hour as he does the same strange thing, and after she questions him about it. She also notes that he is different from what she heard about him. While they are talking, Elsa suddenly appears out of thin air, startling Rui and making him realize that her loyalty has increased. He recalls that the assassination route of the game is triggered when Elsa and another heroine's loyalty is sufficient. Although the game never revealed the culprit of the assassination, Rui finds it terrifying that Elsa's loyalty has increased so much. Clearly jealous that he is talking to another girl, Elsa introduces herself to Ophelia. Rui suspects that Ophelia witnessed the whole drama with Sophia, convincing him that she must hate his guts. However, to his surprise, Ophelia commends him for how he handled himself at the ball. As he watches her leave, Rui finds it shocking for a musclehead like Ophelia to be supportive of him. Moments after Ophelia leaves, Elsa takes out her frustration on Rui by sternly proposing a more intense routine than usual. Later, while preparing for school, Rui gets carried away sniffing Elsa like a bloodhound. At school, Natalia gets too close for comfort with Rui, making one of her knights, Batista, annoyed. To make matters worse, Ophelia arrives and holds Rui like her buddy, revealing that they're training partners. While they turn Rui into the center of attention, Elsa stares at him from a corner as if preparing to skin him alive. Natalia wants to join their morning training, but she claims to be too busy praying. Rui secretly scoffs at her because, according to his game knowledge, she worships something entirely different in private. As he watches the girls bickering, Rui feels a sense of dread and wishes he could exchange them for another set of heroines apart from Sophia. Moments later, the teacher arrives, and Elsa strictly tells Rui that training in the courtyard is prohibited. Recalling her strictness, Rui fearfully agrees with her, drawing unnecessary attention from everyone. That night, Rui trains with the dual swords Elsa gave him, and because of her grueling lessons, he can finally handle the heavy blades properly. A little later, Ophelia shows up, claiming she's there for night practice, but Rui suspects she came looking for him. Without asking, she steps behind him and wraps her arms around him, guiding his movements. Unfortunately, all Rui can focus on is her comfortable soft cushions, causing his brain to short-circuit. Ophelia then asks Rui to spar with her, but he refuses despite her attempts to persuade him. She smiles and admits that he's different from the rumors, both in appearance and attitude. Her smile reminds Rui of the same expression she wore in the game after being captured during a war. After thanking her for the compliment, Rui doesn't notice when Ophelia quietly says she'll find another way to test his skills since he won't fight her. When he asks what she said, she brushes it off and tells him to continue training. The following day at school, Ophelia tries to rope Elsa into sparring with her, but Rui makes up an excuse to stop such a disaster from happening. She then attempts to convince Rui again, making Elsa wonder why she is so obsessed with fighting. Ophelia explains that she simply wants to spar with strong opponents and get to know them better. She firmly tells Rui that she wants to cross swords with him to know him better and uncover his true face. After Ophelia leaves, Rui tells Elsa to help him avoid her, and Elsa immediately accepts the offer as if she just won a lottery. Seeing Elsa finally out of her brooding Yandere mode makes Rui relieved and convinced that he has avoided the assassination route. After school, Rui heads into town with Elsa, and on the way, he sees Ophelia talking with someone, but before he can figure out who he is, Elsa interrupts. Moments later, they arrive at the bustling imperial capital city. From Rui's reaction, Elsa suspects it is his first time, and he explains that he was never allowed out of the house due to his overwhelming size. Elsa tells him that she has been to the city because her family owns an estate at the outskirts of the city. She then suggests they get fraps, which Rui recognizes as something from his past life, even though he had never tasted it. Before they can place their order, Natalia and her knights suddenly appear, leaving Rui disappointed. While he struggles to greet her with a fake smile, Elsa's face turns dark, and Natalia makes things worse by giving Rui sultry vibes. To prevent the snake spirit from stealing Rui's soul, Elsa steps between them, firmly marking her territory. However, that doesn't faze Natalia even a little, and she suggests joining them for the beverages. Elsa refuses to back down and tries to make Natalia leave, but Natalia comes up with an excuse. She claims that spending time with Rui will help build a better relationship between her church and the Empire. Given the looming threat of war between the Empire and several smaller nations, her reason sounds believable enough to Rui. Still, he tells her that he may never take the throne, even though he is the crown prince. This is because in the game, no matter what path he chooses, the crown prince never becomes emperor. After thinking about Natalia's words, Elsa suddenly allows her to stay, which surprises Rui. She explains that he should start building political ties with Natalia now since he will one day become emperor. However, Rui knows she only said it because the only way her family can be restored is if he takes the throne. Knowing fully well that he might never ascend, he tells Elsa that he will restore her family no matter what happens. Moments later, they place their orders, and Rue is shocked when Elsa orders the couple's frappe. He quickly tries to change the order, but Elsa stops him. Natalia even offers to give her a separate drink, but Elsa refuses and decisively focuses on sharing one with Rue. As she takes a sip of the drink, Rue nervously stares at her and manages to also take a sip. As they happily enjoy their drink, Natalia tells Rue to taste hers, but he suggests she give it to the fuming Batista. A few moments later, she bids them farewell and leaves with her knights. After the third party leaves, Rue is alone with Elsa, which makes him feel as if he is on a date with her. Unbeknownst to him, Elsa feels just as nervous about being alone with him. After finishing their drink, Elsa grabs Rue's hand, and on the way, Rue hopes that she also sees this outing as a date. A week later, Rue is exhausted because of Elsa's harsh training. She has been harsher with him since Ophelia started getting close to him. On his way to class, he walks past Sophia talking to the same boy he saw with Ophelia. Rue suspects this dude must have talked trash about him to Ophelia. Right after quietly walking past the two pests, Rue and Elsa run into a mob of students blocking his path. He asks what they want, but instead of explaining, the students angrily insult him, reminding Rue of the classic cyberbullying from his past life. He gets so carried away that he doesn't know when he says what is on his mind, loudly calling them pathetic. This only infuriates the crowd further, but instead of backing down, Rue scolds them for acting like cowards despite claiming to be nobility. Suddenly, Ophelia storms into the scene and grabs Rue by the collar. She angrily reprimands him for trying to hurt Sophia and claims she heard it from Sophia's attendant, Thomas. Rue realizes that when he saw Ophelia on his way into the city must have been when Thomas was brainwashing her, and he is definitely taking orders from Sophia. Rue tries to defend himself, but she refuses to listen to his explanation. Out of frustration, he angrily mentions that he was with Elsa all night, making everyone misunderstand their relationship. Rue tries to explain that Elsa is not a plaything, but that only makes everything worse. To settle the issue, Ophelia challenges him to a duel and even offers to let him face her with Elsa to level the playing field. Without hesitation, Rue accepts the challenge and vows to make her apologize for insulting Elsa's honor no matter what it takes. After Rue accepts the challenge, Ophelia beams with excitement and tells him she'll be waiting at the training grounds after class. Moments later, Rue inspects his new twin blades, crafted from the finest materials, using his privilege as crown prince. Elsa reminds him that he didn't have to accept the challenge, but Rue doesn't regret stepping up to restore her honor and vows to win at all costs. After class, Rue and Elsa arrive at the duel site, where Ophelia and a large crowd of students are already gathered. He suspects the entire academy has come just to watch Ophelia humiliate him. Ophelia quickly notices Rue's twin swords and compliments their craftsmanship before declaring the start of the duel, unsheathing her massive blade to intimidate him. Before the fight begins, Elsa warns Rue not to push himself too hard. Soon, Rue and Ophelia charge at each other, clashing in a fierce battle. Rue barely manages to block one of Ophelia's insane strikes, earning him a compliment from her. Though secretly trembling in fear, Rue forces a fierce expression, but his shaky hands almost betray his composure. Before he can even catch his breath, Ophelia strikes again, but Rue reacts just in time, successfully blocking the hit. Refusing to give him any breathing room, Ophelia swings her giant sword like a mere twig, yet Rue manages to evade every strike. The pressure she feels from striking him amazes her, making her feel as if she just slammed into a giant iron block. Ophelia wonders if Rue's toughness is from slamming his body into the ground. She commends him for holding his ground for so long, admitting that no one has ever survived her attacks as he has. With a smug smile, Rue tells her that she made the experience quite enjoyable for him, taunting her to show him more. Deep down, he's already struggling, but Ophelia finds his courage intriguing. Deciding to push him further, she unleashes her ultimate skill, the Stormbreaker, a devastating attack meant to overwhelm any opponent, but Rue surprisingly withstands the attack. Although this attack deals massive damage, it incapacitates the user briefly after striking. Seizing this opportunity, Elsa swiftly swoops in while Ophelia is distracted, and before she can react in time, Elsa subdues her. Meanwhile, Natalia quickly uses light magic to heal Rue, making him wonder why she is helping him. She explains that she was simply close by and decided to help. Rue thanks Natalia for helping him, but she reminds him that he still needs to end the duel before Elsa hurts Ophelia. He hurriedly stops Elsa, whose eyes had already turned deadly, and the moment she regains her senses, she excitedly rushes into his arms. Ophelia finally collects herself and asks Rue if involving Elsa was part of his plan all along. Rue calmly explains that he knew he could never defeat a battle machine like her, so he had coordinated with Elsa beforehand to ambush her. Besides, Ophelia already declared that a 2-on-1 battle was allowed, so he decided to take advantage of it. The crowd instantly erupts into disgusted chatter, condemning Rue for using underhanded tricks to win. Suddenly, Ophelia roars at the crowd, making them instantly fall silent. She angrily reprimands them, explaining she already permitted the 2-on-1 from the start. Ophelia then commends Elsa and Rue and apologizes to Elsa as promised. Without hesitation, Elsa accepts the apology, and Ophelia remarks that Rue would have won even without Elsa's involvement, but Rue doesn't believe her. She reassures him that she now trusts him, but the other students may not feel the same way. A few minutes later, she calls on her attendant, Clarice, who immediately bundles Thomas into the arena for judgment. Ophelia interrogates him, revealing that everything he said was a blatant lie. Clarice informs her that after the duel, Thomas was secretly stirring up the crowd. Just then, Sophia arrives, feigning ignorance and even condemns Thomas, demanding his execution. Ophelia is disgusted by her audacity, but Sophia even accepts the offer to behead him. Ignoring Thomas's desperate pleas, she struts off like a pompous ostrich, but turns around to rebuke him when he tries to tie her to the crime. Ophelia then leaves the decision to Rue, making him uncomfortable. Elsa offers to eliminate the pest, but Rue refuses and proceeds to give a TED talk to Thomas and the audience about their selfish attitude. After his speech, Rue decides to turn Thomas over to the authorities, and to ensure Sophia is implicated, he openly declares that all testimonies will remain anonymous. Sophia is furious, recognizing that his actions are aimed squarely at her. Ophelia, however, supports Rue, explaining that his heroic stance for Elsa on the night of the ball will eventually encourage others to treat their attendants with respect. As the crowd begins to disperse, Rue notices Eleonora among them, and her smile makes him nervous. Moments later, Ophelia starts to leave, but Rue stops her, asking if she orchestrated the whole thing to help people see him in a different light. Before departing, Ophelia smirks, telling him that she has now seen his true self. Rue is deeply moved, realizing how she managed to help him, even if her methods were extreme. After the duel, Ophelia and Rue became best buddies, but her new attitude towards him makes Rue conclude that she is just a klutz. Natalia suddenly arrives while they are eating lunch and plops her melons on Rue's head, almost crushing his non-existent brain, while her attendant, Batista, blames Rue instead of cautioning his master. The whole thing annoys Elsa as usual, and she proposes annihilating the Saintess and her squad. Natalia then asks Rue for a favor, making him dreadful, but she simply asks him to volunteer to feed people in the slums with her. Rue accepts without hesitation and thanks her for the offer. On the day of the volunteer mission, everyone joins in, including Clarice and Ophelia. Rue is already overwhelmed after a few hours of seeing so many suffering people. He notes that these people are suffering because the Empire focuses on its military instead of the common people, and according to the game's timeline, the suffering is only at its early stages, so he hopes to somehow avoid the destructive ending of the game. Ophelia reassures him that he can lead the nation well, and for the first time, Rue truly feels he could change his doomed fate now that he is surrounded by such good friends. Suddenly, Batista grabs him by the collar, asking for an audience, but Rue refuses to leave his post empty. Before storming off like a duck in heat, Batista tells Rue to meet him in the cornet later. Moments later, Rue heads to the meeting point, and Elsa follows him, making Batista annoyed. During the meeting, Batista sternly warns Rue to stay away from Natalia and stop distracting her from her duty as the Saintess. Basically, Natalia's church is a powerful force across the Western world, and Batista feels that Rue's presence will only tarnish Natalia's authority amongst her followers. However, despite the warning, Rue bluntly refuses to back off, explaining that it is not Batista's decision to make. Rue's decision to get involved with Natalia is because of her kindness towards the poor people. After the meeting, he storms off, leaving Batista barking like an angry dog, and like a brainless fanatic, Batista tells Rue that Natalia is the reincarnation of the goddess set to save the world. Rue completely ignores him, and on the way back, he runs into Marco, who simply chuckles at the fact that Rue refuses to stay away from Natalia. His reaction leaves Rue confused because he thought Marco was also against him. Moments later, Rue is busy keeping Elsa happy when Natalia signals for him to see her privately. He hurriedly rushes to the alley to see her, wondering why she didn't barge in as her usual self. Natalia immediately thanks him for donating to the volunteer mission and commends him, explaining that other nations never get involved in volunteering, so it is left solely to the Minerva Church. Before continuing their conversation, Rue offers her a seat, and he puts into practice the things he learned from How to Rizz a Girl for Dummies. Natalia, moved by his action, tells him that he is different from the rumors, and she then humbly apologizes for what Batista did earlier. Stunned by the apology, Rue reassures her that it is not her fault and decisively informs her that he doesn't plan on distancing himself from her. Rue also asks Natalia to invite him on her next volunteer mission, and she happily agrees. They decide to seal it with a handshake, but Natalia suddenly pulls him closer, asking if he plans to destroy the world, as the rumors say. Rue hurriedly denies it, promising that he's never done such an insane thing. Hearing this, Natalia instantly releases his hand and happily assures him that she believes him. Rue returns a fake smile while nursing his almost broken hands, making him wonder why all the heroines are insanely strong, even the non-combat ones. A few months later, while training with Ophelia, Rue finds his thoughts drifting to Natalia, who has traveled to another kingdom to treat a mysterious epidemic. He worries for her safety, but both Ophelia and Elsa reassure him that she is capable of handling herself. However, weeks later, a letter arrives from Marco informing them that Natalia has been infected with the disease. Though Rue often calls her a cunning she-devil, he cannot ignore the kindness she has shown him, so he resolves to save her no matter the cost. He immediately tells his friends about it, but Elsa protests, fearing for his safety. Rue insists that he wants to assess the situation personally before requesting aid from his father. Elsa continues trying to dissuade him, but Ophelia intervenes, reminding her that once Rue commits to a cause, there is no stopping him. Since the kingdom of Borgonia, where Natalia is currently staying, is too far, Rue suggests using a teleportation portal. Ophelia explains that such portals are difficult to access without formal diplomatic ties between nations. Since the Empire has none with Borgonia, Rue proposes using Ophelia's kingdom as the midpoint, and she agrees without hesitation. Rue then instructs Elsa to handle the portal registration on the Empire's side, while Ophelia entrusts Clarice with managing arrangements in her homeland, making it clear that she intends to accompany Rue. On the day of departure, Rue informs Ophelia that they will use the palace's private portal rather than the one at the ministry, because the foreign ministry would likely forbid travel to an epidemic zone for fear of bringing the disease back home. By using the palace route, Rue hopes to exert control over any unforeseen complications. Moments later, they arrive at the palace's portal chamber, and a sudden sense of dread grips Rue as he wonders if this entire situation had ever been part of the game, but before he can figure it out, Elsa activates the magic circle, forcing him to set aside his doubts and focus solely on rescuing Natalia. Later, Rue and his friends arrive in the disease-ravaged city and head straight to Natalia's location, where they find her riddled with the illness. Marco tells them that Batista has also fallen ill and explains that once someone is infected, the disease petrifies them until death. After explaining things, Marco drops a strange stone, and Rue studies it before asking to see Natalia again. Without minding his own safety, Rue gets too close to Natalia, as she soon regains consciousness, and the look on her face reminds Rue of how she looked in the game when she was stripped of her title and exiled. According to his game knowledge from his past life, Natalia was a poor farmer's daughter until the Pope found her and made her a saintess. Crushed by the pressure of her title, she gave her soul to a demon and was never saved. Watching the pitiful Natalia, Rue commends her for doing her best to save the nation, promising her that he'll take over in her stead. Before he can hold Natalia's hand, Elsa drags Rue out, fearing he might catch the disease. After reassuring her that he is safe, he informs them that the disease is actually caused by something called the Stone Dragon's Manicore. He explains that he once read about it in the royal archives, but the truth is, this was part of the original game. Basically, there were several other ailments, and this dragon's core was added to give players a huge advantage because the game was too difficult. Rue tells Ophelia that someone must have added the core into the town's water source to corrupt it and eventually infect people. From his explanation, the girls realize someone is trying to destroy the town. Rue shows them the stone he picked up earlier, telling them that it is a magic-absorbing stone that can stop the disease, but acquiring a large amount might prove problematic. Still refusing to be held back by anything, Rue is determined to solve the scarcity issue and then locate the dragon core. His resolve practically rubs off on Elsa and the others, and they back him up unconditionally. Moments later, Rue returns to the Empire to seek help from Otto to gather more magic-absorbing stones, while Ophelia has also returned to her nation to get her father's help. Without putting much effort, Otto agrees to help, convincing Rue that he is a softie for his son. After securing his father's help, Elsa asks Rue about informing the Borgonia Kingdom and the church about the cure, but he tells her not to, saying the culprit who set up the whole thing might escape if they act recklessly. Even though they have secured help, Rue still worries that gathering enough for the whole city might take time. As if sensing his concern, Elsa comforts Rue and commends him for not giving up, reassuring him that she will always stand by him. Emboldened by her words, Rue vows to save the city and bring the culprits to justice. Shortly after, they head back to Borgonia to meet up with Ophelia and Clarice. Rue gives Elsa a stone, asking her to sneak into the clinic and use it to cure Natalia, but he tells her to avoid Marco and Batista, saying he only trusts her to handle it, and Elsa happily accepts the mission. After she leaves, he heads to the town's main water supply with Ophelia and Clarice in search of the dragon's core. Ophelia warns Rue that searching the entire pond is impossible, and they might even turn to stone since the corrupted mana will be the strongest close to the core. Rue tells them that he can dive in 12 times with a large number of magic-absorbing stones, and thanks to his sea survival training with Elsa, he can now hold his breath underwater for a while. Despite Ophelia's protests, he still insists on going, assuring her that, as the hideous orc, he still weighs a ton even though he looks skinny. Rue tells her that the weight will help him sink to the bottom of the pond, making his search easier, and he reveals that sending Elsa on another errand was part of a ploy to keep her away, knowing she would never allow him to do something so dangerous. He then anchors a rope to his waist, entrusting his survival to Clarice and Ophelia. He tells them that he would tug on the rope to signal them if he runs out of air or locates the core. After listening to Rue's instructions, Ophelia decisively swears to protect him or follow him to see his ancestors if he eventually kicks the bucket. A few moments later, Rue jumps into the pond, immediately sinking due to his invisible love handles. As soon as he hits the floor bed, he realizes that it is pitch black, making visibility 0, but he refuses to give up and soon locates the dragon's core. However, the closer he gets to it, the stronger its petrification effect, slowly turning Rue into stone, despite all the magic-absorbing stone on him. Unwilling to back down, he grabs the core, hoping Ophelia and Clarice pull him out before he completely turns into stone. Fortunately, they pull him out and pour a ton of magic-absorbing stone on him. However, Rue's whole body has already succumbed to the petrification, except for a small part of his face. Ophelia and Clarice completely bury him in a pool of magic stones, and before long, Rue regains himself. Ophelia, relieved, immediately embraces him while Elsa suddenly appears, leaving Rue stunned. Without wasting time, she practically hurls Ophelia out of the way and throws herself into Rue's arms, asking what happened to him. She immediately bursts into tears after Ophelia explains the situation to her. Rue embraces Elsa, apologizing for making her worried, and she makes him promise never to do anything reckless again. As he comforts her and apologizes over and over again, Rue vows never to make Elsa sad like this. After the emotional waterworks, Elsa promises Rue that she'll never leave his side, making him feel like he just won the loser's lottery. Deciding to move forward, Rue asks Elsa about the mission, earning him another round of scolding for worrying about others instead of himself. Afterwards, she tells him that Natalia has fully recovered and asks what he plans to do next. Rue tells her that he needs to punish the culprit behind the petrification incident, and Elsa offers to find and eliminate them. From their discussion, Ophelia guesses they might already have a suspect in mind, and Rue informs her that he doesn't know the mastermind, but he has an idea about the minions. Hearing this, Ophelia is enraged and threatens to wreak havoc on them, her outburst leaving Rue feeling sorry even for an enemy. Just then, everyone prepares for a confrontation as Marco appears from the bushes, beaming with a smile as usual. Rue tries to keep playing pretend with him, but Marco immediately drops his mask, revealing that he is the culprit. Ophelia is taken aback by this revelation because Marco is supposed to be working for the church and not against it. Rue points out that he already knew the moment he arrived in the city because everyone had fallen, including the Saintess, but somehow her closest aide remained unaffected, which is unnatural. He then reveals that the mastermind behind the disease is the Church of Minerva itself, and the city and its people were collateral damage, while Natalia was the real target because they saw her influence as a threat. Rue recalls that according to the game, the Crown Prince opposes the Pope and joins hands with a key figure from the church who plays an important role in Natalia's storyline. Rue reveals that Natalia is closest to the Pope, and the one who opposes the Pope is Cardinal Lorenzo, who wants full control of the church. Basically, to achieve his goals, Lorenzo needs to remove Natalia, who is loved by many and is the biggest supporter of the current Pope. After his brief assessment, Rue and the girls prepare to take down Marco, hoping to get the full story after interrogating him. However, Batista appears out of nowhere and attacks Rue, but he manages to block the attack. Rue questions the things he said previously at the slums about being loyal to the Saintess. Batista angrily shifts the blame to Rue, saying he was the one who changed Natalia. While fiercely attacking Rue, Batista explains that he stumbled upon Natalia solo leveling while worshipping some hideous demon. He further adds that it only started happening after she began interacting with Rue. However, Rue is not surprised by this news and only feels Natalia should have been more careful not to get caught. Suddenly, Rue realizes something and asks Batista why he was spying on the Saintess, leaving him extremely flustered. Batista tries to explain that being around Natalia all the time is his duty, but all Rue gets from the explanation is that he is a creepy stalker. Before their fight escalates, Marco calls Batista to fall back, and before disappearing into the night, Batista vows to end Rue the next time they meet. Ophelia and Clarice try to chase after them, but Rue stops them, saying they just need to leave the rest to the church and the kingdom of Borgonia. Moments later, Natalia appears from the bushes, revealing that Rue set the whole thing up for her to witness the drama. After checking on her health, Rue asks what she plans to do with everything she heard from Batista. Natalia lets him know that she understands the grievances of a devout follower, suddenly knowing the true colors of their idol. She guesses that Rue must also be disappointed in her, but he reassures her that he is only interested in who she is as a person and not whatever she serves. Moved by his words, Natalia happily embraces Rue while the others watch enviously, especially Elsa. Later, Rue and his friends head to the Palace of Borgonia to see the king. While waiting to be called, Natalia almost crushes Rue with kindness, making him uncomfortable. He tries to get Elsa to help him, but she completely ignores him, leaving him to be smothered by Natalia. Ophelia and Clarice worry about the king refusing to see them, while Rue tries to stay calm while dealing with Natalia. Just then, an attendant invites them inside the throne room, where they come face to face with the king of Borgonia, Dinis. After recounting everything to Dinis, Rue and the girls beg him to seek justice for the people against the masterminds. Even though he has no obligation to grovel before the king, Rue still does it for the sake of Natalia. After listening to them, Dinis calls on his minister, Ricardo, who reports that he has investigated everything and puts all the blame on the Pope's faction. Since Natalia belongs to this faction, Ricardo accuses her of staging the whole incident to gain more influence, and he even accuses Rue of helping her purchase the stone dragon's core. He further adds that the evidence is the fact that Natalia is next to Rue, and the stray bullet even hits Ophelia, dragging her into the mess. Enraged by his lies, Ophelia almost explodes, but the king intervenes before the situation escalates. Deciding to focus on the suffering people instead, Dinis orders his knights to distribute more magic-absorbing stones to the people immediately. Rue is satisfied with this outcome, while Ricardo, whose plans have been thwarted, is infuriated. After meeting with the king, Elsa congratulates Rue for keeping his promise to save the people. Rue is simply glad that the king is a good ruler who cares for the kingdom. Meanwhile, Ophelia worries about the main mastermind, Cardinal Lorenzo, and Clarice fears he might never admit his fault. Rue reassures them that he will figure it out, explaining that he plans to make the supplier of the dragon's core turn on the culprit. Apparently, the kingdom of Gablot supplies such items, and they are close trade partners of the empire. Hearing he already has everything planned out, Elsa praises Rue, making him flustered. After their meeting with the king, Rue and the others set out to help the people, and thanks to the king's intervention, more people were able to get the magic absorbing stone. After the city was saved by Rue's intervention, Ricardo ambushed them before they could leave and tried to arrest Natalia, claiming it was the king's orders. Rue refuses to let them lay a hand on Natalia, but Ricardo decides to capture them all. Rue soon notices Batista and Marco standing behind the soldiers, making him realize that Ricardo works for the Cardinal's faction. He immediately tells Elsa and Clarice to get Natalia back to the palace while he stays back with Ophelia to hold the soldiers back. Despite not wanting to leave him alone, Elsa agrees, and Rue assures her that he will be fine with Ophelia's help. After they leave, Rue charges towards the soldiers while Ophelia unleashes her Stormbreaker skill to keep them away. Distracted by her show of strength, Rue is almost ambushed by Batista, but Ophelia calls his attention to it just in time. He swiftly blocks the attack while an angry Batista continues to rant and talk trash about Natalia, enraging Rue. While trying to keep an eye out for Rue, Ophelia is almost wounded, but Marco suddenly swoops in to save her. He proudly admits that he has switched sides, infuriating the already angry Batista. As Marco prepares to fight side by side with Rue, Ophelia is stunned, while Rue already guessed he was never an enemy at all. He already noticed from the start that Marco's nonchalant attitude was a front to protect Natalia while secretly eliminating any threats. Even dropping the stone at the clinic was a way to alert Rue without being discovered by the enemy. Despite having one more person on their side, Ophelia and Rue are soon surrounded by Batista and the soldiers. However, Elsa arrives just in time with Pope Agrietta and her reinforcements to assist them. With one look from Agrietta, Ricardo almost goes into a code brown situation. The Pope informs him that she came with conclusive evidence to prove Natalia's innocence. She then turns to Rue, telling him that she already caught Lorenzo, and just then, the soldiers bundle Lorenzo into the scene. Agrietta sternly tells him to confess, but he remains silent, so she decides to lay bare everything herself. She reveals that the Dragon Core was actually purchased from Sophia's homeland, Belga. Before she can explain further, Dennis arrives, telling them that his mother was from Belga and Ricardo was quite close to her, which is how he made the connection with Belga. Agrietta reveals that they found a ton of letters exchanged between Lorenzo and Ricardo, meaning they were close. Ricardo immediately denies all the accusations, but Dennis refuses to believe him and immediately orders his arrest. Seeing that everything has been exposed, Batista refuses to give up and shatters a jar containing a strange creature. The creature immediately latches onto him, and Rue orders everyone to stay back as its tentacles hunt for prey. Rue explains that the creature is called an evil roper, a nasty slime with powerful aphrodisiac effects. Seeing Agrietta and Natalia's quick reaction, Rue suspects they already know about it. Rue instructs everyone to back off while Marco helps him deal with the evil roper, but Ophelia refuses to listen and gets roped in by the creature. Fortunately, Elsa steps in to help her, but she gets captured instead. As the slime conducts an unauthorized side quest on Elsa's personal property, Rue races against the clock to halt any plot progression. With one fell swoop, he strikes the slime, freeing Elsa from its grip, but one of the tentacles creeps behind him, and before Rue can react in time, the evil roper completely engulfs him. He tries to move, but soon realizes that the nasty beast has dragged him towards the main body. Rue notes that the creature brought him to its heart, unaware that he still has a weapon with him. Taking advantage of that blind spot, he plunges his blade into the eye of the evil roper, completely destroying it. After the explosion, Rue is practically thrown out of the giant slime, looking like a homeless dude, and when he discovers that he was not hurt by the explosion, he gives the credit to his tough body, earned through Elsa's intense training. Moments later, Elsa happily embraces Rue, almost crushing him with her huge melons. Suddenly, it dawns on them that they have reverted to a Garden of Eden moment, and as Rue points it out, Elsa takes off faster than Marvel's Quicksilver. Not knowing his situation is worse than Elsa's, Rue turns to face the Pope and the other girls, only to realize that his sausage is on display, leaving him devastated. While everyone else admires the crooked sausage, Ophelia is the only one who reacts like a normal human and quickly hides her face in shame, while the others remain completely shameless. Marco steps in just in time to offer Rue a tiny towel, saving his shattered little ego. Afterwards, Pope Agrietta steps closer and thanks Rue for the precious fan service moment. Thanks for watching till the end, and make sure to comment sausages below for part 2.